Okay, good evening, guys. Thank you very much for participating tonight. It's with huge excitement that I'm going to introduce our speaker this evening. In the UK, we've got a number of people that are significantly experienced contactees. If the US has Whitley Strieber and Travis and a handful of others, and obviously Dr. Greer. Over here, Jamie Basil is one of a handful of people that are very seriously experienced contactees. And when you listen to Jamie talking about the experiences throughout his entire life, there are some quite staggering parallels with Dr. Greer himself. Jamie, I believe, first started meditating at about the age of 7, which is exactly what happened to Dr. Greer. And unsurprisingly, the volume of experiences started at a very young age. And just giving Jamie the opportunity to talk to you about those experiences since a very young age and how they changed, the perception of those experiences changed over time, is very interesting. I think what's also very important, and the sort of, I would say the responsibility that we would feel towards you guys that are now embarking on this really amazing journey with us, is that we also, I suppose to a degree, manage our expectations appropriately. There's obviously many contactees. Everybody sitting on this call will probably have a romanticized vision of, you know, this Hollywood image of them landing on the White House lawn and getting out and shaking Joe Biden's hand. But I think the reality is it's really not going to happen like that. And when you listen to the testament of very experienced contactees, you realize that so many of these experiences are very esoteric and really out of the ordinary, and obviously linked to how high your personal vibration is. And this is a consistent theme for those that are coming into this now. You will hear this more and more if you're just coming into this for the first time. So obviously, and very simply, you will have more experiences based on your ability to expand your own consciousness. There are a variety of ways to do that. Every major world religion has an expanded consciousness technique. And certainly if you've been following any of the declassified information coming out of the Central Intelligence Agency in the US, you'll also realize that certain governments have pumped quite a lot of money into devising ways of getting people into these particular states. And once you go into an expanded conscious state like this, you are able to change your personal vibration, and that will help facilitate the contact. So anyway, I don't really want to sit.
Brilliant. Well, hi everyone, and thank you for having me here. And so I suppose I've been kind of contemplating what to share with you, because I think the title is, or the focus is, preparing for contact. And the more I contemplated that, I don't know, not sure where to start and where it ends, to be honest. But that's quite a big question, or a big focus.
Jamie, could you maybe start off by telling us how it all started for you when you were really young?
I'm going to start from the beginning. Yeah. I don't want to focus too much on my experiences, but I am going to give you a kind of a quick rundown. Kind of the context of where I've come from and how I got to here. So it all started for me as far back as I can remember, but definitely from the age of 7. And that's when I had my first conscious experience. Although I spent most of my life thinking that was probably just a dream, or an imaginary friend, as adults told me. It wasn't until many years later that the penny dropped, when I began to inquire into the unusual experience I had at age 7, which would have been about 1986. And up until then, I thought it was just my imagination, but oh God, I've got myself in there. I'm gonna have to explain the experience really, because that's not making any sense. So basically what happened was, up until the age of 12, I imagined that there was a hedgehog in my bedroom. It sounds crazy. It was a blue hedgehog, and it flew across the bedroom. And it's gonna sound totally nuts. It went up on top of the wardrobe, and I did have some fear. And next day I was with a friend, and I got down this game that was at the top. It had dust on top, and it was Buckaroo. I don't know if anyone remember that. Some games you play as a kid. And in the dust, there were what looked like footprints, literally looked like little footprints that you'd imagine of a human. They were about 2.5 inches length, about an inch-ish in diameter, and it really looked like a human foot. It was kind of like curved. It just looked so perfect, and it was in the dust on top of this box. Anyway, I also had I did have some kind of mark on my body, and up until that point, I just thought it was all my imagination. But I started to inquire, because I'd been having these memories since a kid, and people were telling me that, for example, my mum, for example, told me that there's nothing unusual about this. She said to me, this happens to lots of people. Maybe lots of other families are having this experience, but they just don't talk about it. So I was under the impression that maybe this was normal. But at the same time, I was being told that, but it was very confusing. At the same time, it was like, but maybe it was imaginary friends, because the adults in my family were talking about experiences. But it was like, it was okay for the adults to have these experiences. But when a 7-year-old tells them that they're having experiences, and they're even more bizarre, and they're more regular and consistent, and you've had even closer contact than maybe the rest of the family members that are talking about this, suddenly it's, well, you're just 7 years old and maybe it's imaginary friends. So I get to 12 and I start to inquire. So I knew from my memory that there were the footprints on top of the box, on the boxes of the wardrobe, and that there was what I thought was this hedgehog floating across my room. However, at this age, I was sent to a psychologist. I was being bullied at school, and I did talk about these experiences sometimes. So I ended up with a nickname, UFO Boy, stuff like that. I was literally bullied through school because of having experiences. Crazy. And so I was sent to a psychologist. That they gave me an IQ test and said, well, his IQ is pretty high. Why is he in low classes? Need to put him up into higher classes. But he does appear to be, did appear to have like anxiety, or they said it looked like maybe I was even feeling depressed or something. And when I was with the psychologist, we were sat there and they were talking, my mom and the psychologist and my dad, and they're talking away. And at the end, it's just like you're kind of this, this random, like you're just a subject. And at the end, they said, is there anything that you think is relevant? And I was sat there and I was literally having flashbacks back to when I was 7 years old. But what happened was, rather than remembering that there was a hedgehog flying across my bedroom, I actually remembered that it wasn't a hedgehog. And so what I remembered was that I was woken up in my bed, and there was a being at the end of the bed, and it was about 3 foot tall. And it was, I don't get too hung up on describing what it looked like, but it was kind of, big eyes, humanoid. And it was looking at me. And first of all, I was just curious what's going on. But then I was a bit afraid. And I literally did start to call out for my mum. I was getting scared. Not surprising for a 7-year-old. And what happened was, the next thing happened was really, really kind of bizarre, and was that I was looking through his eyes at myself in bed, looking at myself, screaming at him. And as that happened, looking through his eyes, there was a recognition. This has happened before. This isn't the first time. And I had vague memories before that point of the sense of presences or beings that were around, but I couldn't remember what they looked like. It was almost like I wasn't meant to, for some reason, know what was going on. It was like a kind of a there in the background. And there was also a sense of recognition in a deeper sense, a feeling of not only have we met before, but maybe even beyond, like not just, oh, I met you a few times before, this kind of crazy encounter, but the feeling was like we're family. There was a sense of connection, like we are family. Um,
Tell them trying to go to sleep.
Pardon, someone just shouted something at me. And then what happened was my mum came up the stairs, and you can guess my mum didn't come up the stairs and see this thing floating there. What actually happened was I could hear my mum coming up the stairs, and just before that point, it looked at me, and then it just began to float upwards, and it floated away. And as it floated, it wasn't like it just floated. It was kind of like it was moving its arms and its feet like this, and it just floated, and it went up where the wardrobe was. Of course, it was dark in my bedroom. There's only light coming through the door because I slept with my door open. I didn't like to be in the dark. The light was coming in, so I saw this being that was kind of really backlit. It floated up onto the wardrobe, and my mum comes in and says, "Oh, don't be silly. You're imagining things." And I said, "Oh, it's the little blue man." The little blue man came back. Next day, what happened was I found the footprints, but I was a very inquiring mind at a young age. I was actually very skeptical of my own experiences from a very young age. Yes, I did make some mistakes growing up. One occasion, I thought that I was seeing a UFO, but it was only Venus on the horizon. I mean, that surprised me, how it looked so metallic and how it seemed to move so quickly. But I had a strong, inquiring, skeptical mind from a young age. I was what some people would call a doubting Thomas. And so I started to inquire, is this my imagination? Is this some kind of, even I was thinking at the age of 12, is this some kind of like thing because I've been bullied that I'm creating these kind of fantasies or something? And so I said, well, if this is just my imagination, let's look into this. Is it just a memory that I have? So I went up to my mum and said, "Mum, do you remember anything unusual from when I was a little boy?" And she just looked at me, she said, "Well, you have blonde hair." And I'm like, "No, Mum, that's not really unusual, like anything unusual." So I was very aware, don't tell my mum, "Do you remember that experience?" I just said, "Do you remember anything unusual?" And she started to look down and she started to think. And she literally said, "Well, yeah, I do remember you at 7. You said about this little blue man or something in your bedroom, but and there were these footprints that you showed me on this box in your wardrobe. And I just thought it was, just an imaginary friend or something. You kept talking about these things. I didn't know what to think." And I was just blown away. I was like, oh my gosh. I thought that up until now, I just remembered there was a hedgehog flying in my bedroom and I imagined all of this stuff. And now you're telling me that you remember it and these footprints were there. And so I also asked a friend of mine that was in the memory, and I said, "Do you remember anything unusual from when I was 7 years old?" And he came out with it straight away. He said, "Yes, you showed me these footprints that were on a Buckaroo box on top of your wardrobe." And I jokingly said, "Oh, it's just foot-shaped rubbers and this kind of stuff. And these like pencil rubbers that were foot-shaped." So, "Oh, maybe it was that, and it was some kind of joke that you were playing on me." And he said also I showed him the mark on my body, which was a kind of like a white line on my tummy, and I had one on my shin as well. It was about 6 inches in length. Now, so that was an early experience, and basically, so throughout my life, these things carried on happening, and I thought I was going to grow out of it. It was just imaginary friends, but it just kept on happening and happening and happening. And there were UFOs, there were lights, and neighbors would see it. It was like our neighborhood was kind of like UFO hotspot. I got myself embroiled in the media because I started to talk about these experiences. It was at I think it was 1995, I ended up on the music television channel crying my eyes out, telling them about this experience and other experiences that happened that I could remember afterwards. And to be honest, it got really messy. I started to become known as an abductee. And I was like the youngest person to ever, at that point anyway. I think there was someone younger followed me not long afterwards that I knew. You may have heard of him, Jason Andrews. But I was like the youngest person in the UK to come out with these experiences. And the media were all over me, like, calling me out all the time, "Come out, we've got another interview for you." I started to get more and more annoyed at the media because they would always put my experiences in a frame that made them very negative and like kind of sensationalist, and I was becoming aware that I was being misquoted and being made to look silly, and it became quite a painful thing for me because on the one hand I couldn't walk down the road because people would be calling me names and laughing at me and everyone thought I was crazy, or, you know. And on the other hand, I was determined to find out what was going on, and I wanted to prove to people this was real. So it partly became my thing. It was like it was my experience. I want to prove to people that, you know, I'm not imagining things and this is real. And what the media don't really understand, and what's very difficult to communicate, you know, through these channels, you know, like in a newspaper article or a magazine article, or even an interview on a TV channel, whatever, is that it's much more complicated and nuanced and subtle. And this subject is actually really quite profoundly deep. None of us can sit here and say we know what's going on exactly. So I like to, in a sense, I feel like in a way I'm a beginner, just like all of us. And so I was kind of known as an abductee for a while, and as a term that I used too, and I started to fall out with that word. I didn't like it. It suggested that I was being abducted against my will. But one of the things I remembered was that a part of me was scared. When it was happening, I didn't want it to happen. I was like, oh, no, not again. Oh my God, I don't feel I can handle this. This is too much. Another part of me was like, this is what I want. I feel at home. And a memory of, I agreed to this. This is not something against my will. There's a part of me on a deep level that is having this interaction, that is actually in agreement with this. This is some kind of, this is meant to be. And I started to fall away from the term abductee, because when I'd share my story, it would be framed a certain way, overly simplistic. But in reality, I don't think I was an abductee, if that makes sense. So I started to refer to myself as an experiencer. I've never really liked the word contactee. Sorry, James, I know you introduced me as that. Contactee for me is kind of like, you know, Adamski and messages of love and light. And for me, it's more kind of, I don't know, it's like, I like the word experiencer because it just means I'm experiencing. It doesn't mean that, you know, I've been taken against my will, or I'm a contactee, which sounds kind of a bit special. It just means I'm having experiences. And that means that all of us here are basically the same. We are the same. All of us can have experiences. All of us, plenty of us are already having experiences. And so all of that happened. I could go on forever. I mean, literally, I've lost count of how many UFOs I've seen on my own and with other people. Literally, at the top of my head, it's got to be in the hundreds. Now, in 1995, I was introduced through Maria Ward, who was another experiencer that I met, that also knew Jason Andrews, and she was quite well known on the circuit. And I was, like I said, I was quite well known in the media and the UFO community. I was already aware that I used to call it calling them down, that I was able to call them down. And I had many experiences where I did that, where I was like, where I'd speak to them. I would just speak to them. I'd get really emotional and have a conversation. I wouldn't like hear a voice or something, but I would just speak to them emotionally and say, I want to see you. I want to see you. And things would happen. And one of the things that was happening from a young age and over the years was on all levels, because I had all sorts of experience, not just UFOs, but people that have these experiences also tend to have other experiences that we would think of as, you know, for example, you know, I was into mediumship, and I was from a young age seeing people that looked like normal people. They looked physical. They'd be walking down the road, and I look back and they would be gone, and they would be dressed funny. I'm like, wait a minute, why are they dressed like in these old-fashioned clothes? So I was having those kinds of experiences too. There was poltergeist activity when I was young. And one of the things, I had a lot of correlations between myself and my family. For example, I started to keep a record of all my family's experiences. And although my mum said that this stuff could happen to anyone or any family, I knew that only 1 in 10 people would see a UFO. So this was back when I was back in about 1993. It was about I don't know what it is today, but back then it was 1 in 10. However, in my family, 70% reported a UFO sighting. And not just a light in the sky, but they were actually reporting things up close and personal. And a lot of them were also reporting experiences with beings. So I knew that something wasn't adding up here. I was in a world where it was said that these experiences, on the one hand, are abnormal. They're all in your imagination. They can't be true. But I've got all of these adults around me reporting them, and I'm starting to come across things in the wider, in the world, show me, wait a minute, I'm not the only one. And so when I met Maria Ward, she was an experiencer. And wow, gosh, did we have some crazy times. One of the things that happened when I met Maria Ward was that she introduced me to CSETI, because she was in the Southwest group with Dr. Greer. So this is back in the, this is a long time back, like in the early 90s. And although I was already making contact in a more, okay, I choose to make contact. So I was initiating contact, which is what CE5 basically is. But I was already doing something that was kind of like a technique, I guess you'd call it. Now, I used to jokingly call it the Batman beam. So, in Batman, where he sends up the blue beam with his Batman image up into the sky. That's kind of that's what I called it. That I would imagine sending a blue beam of light from my third eye up into space. And because from a young age, I was having I started meditating at the age of 7. I don't know why, I just started meditating. And this, of course, I don't know whether that was what led to my experiences. I don't think it was, because I was having experiences before that, but certainly by meditating a lot, I was having more experiences and getting into all these kind of deeper states of consciousness. I was also having astral travel experiences from a young age. It was quite normal for me to be able to exit my body, and it would just happen. But I also developed my own technique. At a young age, before I read anything, I developed a technique, which I will even share with people if they want to learn that, of how to project myself out of my body. And what I would do, I'd imagine the blue light going up, and I would imagine then sending myself through the blue light up into space. And the blue light to me was like a tube. And on the end of the tube, I would also imagine that there was the shape at the end of it of a triangle. And that was my symbol that I would send up into space, that ET star people would recognize as my symbol. And funnily enough, in 1995, at the age of 15, was when I came across Maria Ward, and she introduced me to the CSETI contact protocols. And in the CSETI protocols, of course, as many of you are aware, you've got what they call the CTS, the coherent thought sequence, which is basically projecting yourself up into space, imagining it all kind of falling behind you and then coming all the way back down. And some people, when they do that, they even imagine that there is a beam of light going upwards, and that's how we do it today in our groups. It doesn't tend to be blue anymore. We tend to imagine gold. I think that's because I don't know, maybe that's the upgrade. And that's certainly how Dr. Greer, I think maybe a lot of these groups imagine gold or white, and gold's a pretty cool color. So yeah, so I learned that. And one of the things was she gave me a tape. It was literally a tape, an audio tape. So a lot of people in the CSETI movement, they're really getting to all these different tools, and it's getting all kind of technological, right? Which is cool. But back then, all I had was an audio tape. An ordinary audio tape, and it had theta waves. So this is sounds that put your brain into an altered state. Now, I was already meditating, as I explained, but I did notice that the tape did seem to have some effect on my consciousness. And what I would do, I would just lay in bed, play the tape. She also gave me the tones of the sound that UFOs make, which I have heard throughout my life many, many times. It's kind of like a reed, like a or like a cricket type sound, but speeded up and more high pitched. They vary, but they're, and there's more than one recording of these. She actually sent me another recording of someone in Canada that was an experiencer, and they actually recorded it. They actually put a tape recorder and they strapped it onto their leg or something, and they managed to record this in the middle of the night whilst having a UFO encounter. And So what I would do is lay in bed, meditate, play the CD, project up through my blue beam in space, come back down, play the tones, and then I would go up into the field at the back of my house. And although I was having experiences already, I was quite amazed, and I'm always amazed, to be honest. It's weird. I never failed to be amazed and awestruck by these things and excited, which is that 9 out of 10 times I would have a UFO sighting. And every time I would have some kind of connection with the beings or an enhancement of the connection. But that connection can be so subtle that you might even miss it. It's the basic connection is, oh, wait a minute, it's not just me. It's like you're in consciousness, and then you get a sense that there's another, what I call the other, a sense of a presence with you. And then sometimes that may lead to an appearance of a being or light or an energy, or you may remote view a craft or whatever. But that was basically what happened. And so that happened. But I fell out of that. I was a solo practitioner, C5, and I didn't really take it very far. There was some sky watches I went on, but we didn't really do C5s much in groups. There was a group in, I think, 2003 where I did a C5 with another group. It wasn't very much like CSETI, but they had some incredible experiences, and I actually was privy to attend a C5 with them, only on one occasion, but even on that one occasion I saw things that just blew my mind all over again. It was incredible. They were definitely having contact. So that was age 15. Now I was on off. It was like a love-hate relationship with ET. And the last phase I went through was really a kind of like, right, that's it. I'm fed up of not being able to prove that you guys exist. I'm fed up of any anxiety, fear I've had. I just want to be normal. I'm putting this all behind me. And that was just before 2012. And then in 2012, something happened. I should have really got the book and maybe quoted it, but basically there's a book that I was sent many years ago to kind of review. And it was, I can't remember her name. Anyway, in the book, she talks about these different stages that people that have experiences may go through. And I opened it randomly on a page, which is something I do a lot, open a book at random and get a message. I open it random and it's talking about almost like, it says when the experiencer gets to a point where everything up until now is just the past. And it's like, there is only now. And from this point onwards, it's like experiencing this with fresh eyes. It's like it's a brand new experience, and any preconceptions from the past are now kind of let go of. And this was like an epiphany for me. And I started to hear again about CSETI, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, it seems to be like, oh, everyone's banging on about, you know, C5. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know about all this stuff, but I don't want anything to do with this. I started to talk to people on the C5 initiative group online. And then someone wanted to talk to me, and it was Dr. Joseph Burks, who was in CSETI, and also he's did a lot of work in the Rama group, which is a Latin American contact group that actually predates, really in many ways, predates CSETI. But very much, you know, far less of us know about that group. I would recommend looking into them, the Rama group. He spoke with me, and we spoke for quite a while. We had a few meetings, and the penny just started to drop. It already happened like a few years before, and it happened again. It was, holy crap. The reason why I started meditating at the age of 7 wasn't like the Buddhist said, that maybe you have a past life groove as a Buddhist, or not like the mediums said that maybe you this and this in a past life. It wasn't that. It made so much more sense when I realized that the big theme of my life was the contact experience. And I do remember many experiences in meditation where there's this experience of like almost like focusing on an object, focusing without blinking on a point, and it would become like tunnel vision. And then what would happen sometimes is that as I would be focusing, this would be experienced literally as if it was some kind of wormhole. And then this progressed. I had an experience where someone astral projected from another country, from the United States, and it was mind-blowing. But even then I thought maybe this is it, it's my imagination again. But they actually turned up next day physically, online by the way, and said, "Hey brother, I'm here." And this was another person having experiences, and it was just totally mind-blowing. And it was like, oh, okay, wormhole. So it was like it came through the ceiling, and he actually seemed to come as if he came down through the ceiling in a light with his hand out and took mine, and then I kind of moved up with him. That was one example, but there are many other examples, many times where for example, I had an astral so this was I was asleep, but then I became awake and I saw my body in bed, and then as I was looking around, I also noticed that at the back of my bed, behind the headstand, the wall, very big, was actually rippling like it was made of water, liquid. And as I looked into it, it stretched off into the distance. And I started having those kind of experiences, and I was able to project myself into the wormhole and visit him. Also, there were beings that would come through these wormholes. Now, I know this might sound I've gone a bit too far here. Might all sound a bit freaky and crazy. Don't worry, this won't be happening anytime soon. But what I realized was that it was the ETs that had actually motivated me or influenced me to begin meditating at a very young age. And that was the reason why, and that's why I've ended up on.
You've gone quiet there, Jamie. You've put yourself on mute.
Sorry, I must have hit a shortcut on the keyboard. So I got back into CE5, and I had a first group, and we had wonderful experiences from the get-go. And then it carried on, and it was just wonderful. It was just absolutely wonderful. And it was like my whole previous experience where there was anxiety or fear, it all just seemed to dissolve. And I literally thought, you know what? I've gone from being an abductee to being an experiencer to being a contact worker. And ever since 2012, I can honestly say that the experiences have just been absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And I've had to kind of like look back on all my previous experiences and reassess anything that I've said or how I've interpreted my experiences, because I came across Dr. Greer's work where he was talking about fake alien abductions, military manipulation, and things like that. And I found that hard to believe. But there were many things when I was young that indicate that that is a possibility. I had experiences of being remote viewed, not by ETs, but by humans, and they were military. I was able to remote view them back. Sometimes got myself into a little bit of trouble in that. And when I was with Maria Ward, we were on the phone many times, and there used to be clicking sounds on the phone. And then one day we had BT come out because the line would just go off at 8 o'clock. And there would also be a funny black helicopter which would fly over our house. She told me it was the military, that they were hacking the phone. I found this hard. I just thought, what? But of course I was young. This is kind of cool at the same time. This is exciting, right? But when I look back on this, I thought, no. I'd formulated in my mind that maybe, maybe these experiences were, negative or whatever, or they were to be afraid of. But it all began to dawn on me when I came across Greer again in 2012. You know what? I think he's onto something. Because I'd had these realizations that not only could we maybe be people have been manipulated by Hollywood, by the military industrial complex, but also that I believe they may even have technology where they can simulate fake experiences. I mean negative experiences, or even influence the kind of experiences that people have, using some form of technology. And then, of course, I came across Greer, and he was talking about similar things, but some of this was actually coming out of leaked documents and stuff. And I was like, wow, now it's all making sense. And when that happened, and I fell in love with CE5, like I say, it's been wonderful ever since. I've always had wonderful experiences, and all the people in our teams have reported wonderful experiences. And it feels to me that the early groups in CE5, for example, Dr. Greer's group, did have trouble at the beginning. Other groups have reported that too. I had it, but it feels to me that what happens over time is there's some kind of you work through these difficult energies and these kind of challenges, and then you get to a place where it's transformed. And I think other people that are coming on board into CE5 are, it's like anything, it's the 100th monkey effect. We're riding the wave of all of the work that has already been done, and it just gets easier and it becomes more secure. Yeah. So I hope that wasn't too crazy, or have I got the right balance there to share that story. So today my thing is just contact work, and for me that's what it's all about. So that's basically what happened with me. So maybe at this point, if there may be any questions at all, any burning questions, and maybe I could give an answer or share on that.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you, obviously, to prepare some of the new guys for this, it's basically based on your experiences since 2012. It's fair to say that there is one of the things that stops a lot of contact groups around the world is obviously, if you're trying to be a coherent group, one person, maybe one or two people in the group, accidentally, invertedly block the experience because they're scared. There really is no point being scared about these beings at all. They are, I mean, first of all, they've got the technology. If they really wanted to invade, they would have done it by now. Or if they really wanted another adverse reaction for us, would be just to do nothing at all and let us make ourselves extinct with what we're doing to the planet. But the fact is, they are here, they are trying to make contact, and they do have our best intentions at heart. Is that fair enough to say that?
I like to just kind of to be very honest and say I can't 100% claim I know anything. When I got back into CE5 in 2012, it was what I call beginner's mind. Some people might have heard this term. It's like a Zen term. It just means that, okay, yeah, you can learn things and you can know more, but there's always more that it's just always more that we don't know. And we've only just scratched the surface of what we're dealing with here. But does that mean that I, when I was young, there was a lot of fear, and I did go through a lot of work on wanting to let go of that fear. When I do CE5 now, is there fear? No, I'm out on my own. I will sit on my own in the dark and meditate and make contact and have experiences. If anything, I get excited. But at that same time, if I was to say there was no fear, I'd probably be lying. And in fact, ETs have told me that I still have some, but I think that's normal for all of us. And I think we just got to be honest and say, well, yeah, come on, let's be honest. We might say, oh yeah, I'd love it. Spaceship comes down. No, I won't be afraid. I'll be the first one to shake their hands. I just think that's a bit of you being a bit gun-ho. And the reality is that we're dealing with something that is just absolutely incredible, and transformative and profound. So, however, my experiences and and the people in our teams as well that have had experiences, we experience an overwhelming sense of love and peace. And when these experiences happen, they happen when there is this higher consciousness, when you're in your heart, when you're in a place of peace and love and connection with each other. And I really cannot understand if this is something to be afraid of or to be suspicious of. I really can't understand why this experience appears on these occasions, if that's the case. To me, it just makes so much sense that it's responding to this higher consciousness, to this love, to this sense of oneness. And so therefore for me, yeah, in that sense, I feel a certainty, a comfort in it in that sense. But I also like to, at the same time, kind of be honest and say, well, beginner's mind. I can't claim to know 100% anything, really. And I think that's what it is just for us to explore and find out for ourselves. And this is the thing, it's not so much like, oh, well, in this book, so I'll share an experience with our first group. I was we had some UFO sightings, but there was another occasion when we didn't have any visuals in the sky, but I was aware of a being off in the distance behind one of our group members. And I described the being, and he said, "Oh, is it a grey? Because I'm really not sure about those." He said, "Is it a reptilian? Definitely don't want to see one of those." And he sounded really scared. And he said, "Oh, what if it's an Arcturian? Now they're really cool, and that would be really cool because I'm reading a book about them." And this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. When the UFO activity occurred, this particular member started to not admit it, but did become very nervous and was demanding that they make their appearance more obvious. He said, "No, I'm not going to put up with them being vague and being paradoxical and being like, he got really angry. And I think that anger was actually an expression of fear because he got so angry and frustrated at what was happening, apparently, that he wanted it to be a different way, that it caused us to have to leave. And this is what I mean. So we don't want to be in that state of mind. We don't want to be in this simplistic, oh, the good guys and the bad guys. And I think this is the kind of thing that really doesn't help, which is, if you're in a group and that's going on, it causes, it doesn't help contact. I think we got to let go of what we've read in books. I saw a book recently by a person claiming they have experiences, and yet it was looked like a sci-fi book. And she said that there were 100 different beings, and she could tell you what planet they come from. She'll even give you a star chart, and she'll tell you if they're good or bad. Or maybe she gives you a percentage out of 100. I don't know. But this to me is quite. This is not where we want to be. And it's okay if that's where we are now, or we have been like that. But it's something just to kind of let go of our preconceptions, because that's where a lot of these fears, unfounded fears, are coming from. Just repeat, as you probably heard Dr. Greer and others say many times, during CE5s, when we're actually doing C5, no one's ever reported a negative experience. In the survey by Free or the Edgar Mitchell Foundation, I get muddled up now with what is what, but I think it was 8,000 people they surveyed, and virtually all of them said it was a positive experience, including, interestingly enough, with so-called greys. They were still overwhelmingly, almost 100% of the time, reported as positive encounters. And even with so-called reptilians, they were overwhelmingly almost 100%, near 100% positive encounters. And so we just get these ideas in our head because we want it simple. We want certainty. And that's the reason why I'm saying beginner's mind, being okay with paradox and uncertainty, is key to this. We don't want to swap fear for, I've got no fear and I'm going to run up to the spaceship now and hug ET. I'm the first one to jump on board the craft when it lands. Because when people start talking like that, the truth is they're probably, maybe they could be the first person to freak out. Because they're just not being honest.
So basically what we're picking up from your conversation is that when you start to expand your consciousness and you start to have these experiences, you're really opening a Pandora's box of, and as you describe it, experiences. And some of these might be visual, some of these might be sensual, but it really, have you seen a sort of a graph whereby it starts to increase exponentially, but your first initial experiences are maybe you're doubting what you've just seen, or you're doubting it's real? Is that pretty much what you're saying then? Is that what people can expect with when they first start doing this?
James, maybe we're all different, because when I was a teenager, I was speculating, what if they don't come from another planet? What if they're time travelers? What if they're from another dimension? I wrote a letter to UFO magazine back then, and it's funny because you said Pandora's box. So I wrote to them and said, isn't it the case that we should be looking at psychic experiences, because every person that reports UFOs reports psychic experiences? How come we don't hear about that? All we hear about is this person sees a light in the sky at 9 p.m. and there's two witnesses, they took a photograph and it was going northeast. Or it's chased by a jet. Why do we only hear about that? It's like we're assuming this nuts and bolts hypothesis that what we're dealing with is extraterrestrials. And again, it comes back to that. Let's keep this simple. Let's have certainty. Where do they come from? Alpha Centauri. What if we, even if we have an experience and the being says they're from Alpha Centauri, which in my experience, no being has ever told me that. They're much more speaking riddles. Kind of, but even then, if they say that, does that mean that that is the case? You know, so I don't know. What I'm saying is, like, I just like to kind of put some things in file 13 with a big question mark, and not jump to assumptions. So I live in a space of kind of being okay with not knowing, or at least not knowing everything. Because as soon as you've got to have these answers and you think you know it all, and then you've kind of read some books or even had some experiences, and you think, right, you know, this is that and that is this, and that's how it is. And then what's happening is you're not expanding consciousness, you're not opening up. I think you're closing down again. So what I'm trying to say is this: we can go from being scared of ET or scared of the other to now the others are the good guys and they're here to save us. And we've had people like that sometimes in our groups. And there was, in one of our groups, we had a meditation and people were actually in tears. There was clearly a being interacting with us, but everyone had a slightly different experience. But you could tell that all of us were experiencing something at the same time, which left all of us very deeply emotional. One of our group members was earlier talking about, and did often talk about, this idea that the ETs would come down and whisk us up on a craft and save us. But we were in this meditation and we were connecting with this intelligence, and it said to me very clearly, not in words, what happens is the beings, I call it telepathy. So they communicate really. Some people have had experiences where you would call it like classic telepathy of a voice, but that would frighten most human beings. And also some human beings apparently aren't able to, at least yet, do that. So some ETs will use a technology to be able to interface with that human so that they can have a clear communication like that. But it depends on the species you're interacting with, the level of their consciousness, you, and whatever technology is involved. They're all different. But basically, what it really is about is that they can communicate with us through the heart. And so I call it telepathy. So you feel it, okay? But then you just know it through feeling, which is energy, feeling, right? And then it's translated through your dualistic brain, your mind, and your brain wants to turn it into language. Thank you. Yeah, that's basically how I experienced it. And on this occasion, it was exactly like that. There was this incredible feeling, which was causing me, I was crying. And the message was, and there was a part of me that wanted them to save us. You know, oh, if these are the good guys, they're going to come down and whisk us all up. There was a part of me that wanted that too. But the communication was, that's not what we're here for. We're not here to save you. We're here to support you, to facilitate you saving yourselves. So, yeah, like I'm saying, we can jump from one thing of the, bad ETs to good ETs. And I think really it's just kind of, well, let's just explore. But I will just repeat that the experience I've had since 2012 have been absolutely wonderful. And I've not seen anyone, you know, in our groups or whatever, you know, they're all having wonderful experience and absolutely reporting all sorts of wonderful things. So,
okay, Jamie, we've got a lot of questions coming in for you now.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna fire some of these through to you now.
Go for it.
First one, Neil's asked, have any of your experiences been direct physical contact with ETs?
Well, it's funny, you know, that some of like other cultures, you know, like American Indians or the shamanic cultures, Aboriginals or whatever, they don't make a distinction between physical and what we think of as spirit. And my way of experiencing is that I don't see physical reality, matter, body as being separate from spirit. For me, they are actually they are one and the same. They're not two, they are the same. So, but Westerners, we do break things down into different states, shall we say. So, you know, normal waking consciousness, lucid, astral, um, emptiness, or what we call non-dual, pure consciousness or oneness. And I think when I was young, I thought that all the experiences could be, or I had a more of a tendency towards thinking that they would be physical. However, as I've grown older, with more experience, and also coming across, I don't know if anyone's heard of Ken Wilber and integral theory. So to keep this simple, imagine a cross, and you've got states which are like waking, gross waking consciousness, subtle, which is like chakras, energy, meridians, close your eyes, imagining things, astral travel, that kind of stuff, lucid dreaming. And then you have emptiness, which is kind of like, for me, like where we might think of it's like, oh, it's almost like, oh, there's nothing. It's just like empty space, spaciousness. It's before there was light. So right on the edge from emptiness to subtle is like the purest form of light coming into the subtle realm. For example, in this would be different in different traditions, but in the Christian tradition in the Bible, it was, you know, God said, "Let there be light." For me, that would be that first spark of light coming from emptiness, because emptiness is where, like, from nothing comes everything, or let there be light, which is partly light, is partly to do with form. It's the beginning of form, right? And emptiness. And then you have what we call the non-dual, which means not two. But non-dual is, we may have heard of the phrase mind, body, and soul. So we are a triune being. We're mind, body, and soul. We're not mind or body or soul, or we're just body. We're not like meat. We're not like, we're just like meat machines or something. Where we are spirit having a physical experience, but at its deepest level, there isn't a separation. It's not, these aren't two different things. This is spirit. So I suppose, anyway, there's these different states. And as I became aware of this, I was able to then, by exploring and identifying different states of consciousness and like the phenomenology of these experiences, I was able to look back at my contact experiences and get more clarity about what was physical and what wasn't. Now, on one level, it's kind of hard for me to prove, even to myself, whether some of those experiences were actually physical. But I can say that some of them did appear to be physical, yes. But I would say very few. Most of them, the vast majority, were in meditation. They were telepathic. They were a lot of astral travel and out-body experience, contact in dreams. And of course, lights in the sky, phenomena like that. Now, those things, a lot of those were physical. But when it comes to the beings, for me, I would say the vast majority were not. They were memories of experiences, or experiences in from the astral realm, or in an out-of-body experience. I hope that made sense. And that was one thing I wanted to talk about, was contact can come in many forms, and especially when you're first starting this, and it's for various reasons, it's easier to contact us in dreams, and especially if there's anxiety. And one of the things that star people will sometimes do is we've experienced this in our groups, that they will actually work with people in their dreams to help them release fear. So dreams, out of body experiences, and that's kind of astral travel. So astral travel and out of body aren't the same. Astral travel, close your eyes and imagine you're somewhere else. Imagine you're, I don't know, some wonderful place in nature or somewhere where you like to be. Imagine it. Use your senses in a way that you use your senses, or it's a memory. Maybe it's what you see or hear or feel or smell. When you do that, that's astral travel. You are actually already there. And that's where people sometimes get these terms muddled up between OBE, out of body, and astral travel, because out of body experience is different from astral travel. It's more of it feels very physical. It's like you do actually, sometimes when you're coming out of your body, it starts to vibrate, like it's buzzing, and you come out of your body and you can see your body, and on the way out, it feels quite uncomfortable. And then you exit, and then it's like you're in what can look like the same as your ordinary reality, but kind of slightly different. So these things can seem quite similar, and again, lucid dreams, but they are actually, once you get more refined and have more of these experiences, you can tell the difference between them. They are distinct, different levels of reality or consciousness, and also we can have contact on all these levels. Another one is, like I say, what I call telepathy or resonance. Just knowing that we're one with the other, with the star people, and we can actually experience this kind of communion or oneness, and sometimes a communication as well at a distance, because in reality there isn't really any distance between us. They could be far out there, millions of miles away, but are up on their craft, but they're not really millions of miles away. On the level of consciousness, we're all in the same space. And then the other, of course, contact, which is quite common, is visuals, seeing lights in the sky, or even a being. But then there are other things like synchronicity, strange synchronicities, and they will use that. If you ask them to connect with them, they'll lead you towards finding the people or the things you need to know to get you the results that you want and move in the direction that you are wanting to go in. One of the ways I connect with ETs is simply just to talk to them. Just open your heart up and have a good old chat. Mean it. Speak to them like you mean it. Even if you get upset or frustrated, they sometimes they'll even respond to that because they've sensed how genuine it is.
We've got a couple of people that are really keen to. Got some great questions coming in. There's one very nice lady called Amanda, who I think is part of the Yorkshire group, if memory serves right. She really, really wants to have an experience. Amanda, do you want to unmute yourself and ask Jamie directly?
Yeah, hiya, you're right.
Hi, Amanda. Hi.
Hiya. Right, so yeah, I've watched Close Encounters 2 weeks ago, and my mind was just like, because growing up, I used to believe, oh, there's got to be something else. There's got to be other things. And I'd look at the sky at night and I'd be like, I know you're out there. I know you're there. But then you just, people are, it's a load of rubbish. It's a load of, it's all made up. And then now watching things like Unacknowledged, and it's like, oh, it is real. And then I've got the app, and then everyone's saying, do this, do that. And it's like an overload, and I'm not sure, where do I start? What do I do? How do I just don't know what to do.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we can fluctuate. It's kind of like, this idea of, I had an experience. Oh, it's real then. Oh, maybe it's all my imagination. Oh, it's real. That's just human nature. And it's, I don't know, even to this day, it's kind of like, I'm ready for something even more spectacular, even more convincing. Maybe I'm just going to be the doubting Thomas for the rest of my life. I don't know. So what, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, but what is it that you've done so far?
Well, I've got the app. I've been
Uh-huh.
reading through that. I've been sitting outside with the sounds playing. There's some sounds on it. I've had that playing, and just been sat up watching the sky. I mean, where I live, there is quite a bit of light pollution. But I've been trying to meditate, because I didn't know if I could do it or not. And I've been trying. I went to a stage school, so I didn't do much. I didn't do chemistry. I didn't do biology. I didn't do anything like that. So I never learned about the solar system. I don't know what it looks like in space. I didn't learn about the planets. So everyone was saying, well, you need to come out of yourself and go up and into space and guide them to where you are. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know what space is like, so how can I guide them? So I've been trying to learn about the solar system. But then when I've been outside playing them noises,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed the more you're staring up at the sky, the more you start to, it's like it starts opening and out. You can see more. And I do start to see things, but then I'm thinking, is that my imagination? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? Because
Right,
I've no one
okay.
to guide me. I've no one with me at the moment.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
it's COVID.
Yeah. So Amanda, when you do this, yeah, one of the things that I observe is, like, especially when you're looking at the sky, it starts to, oh, it just kind of looks different. Something happening. I don't know what. I would, my intuition is saying this, which is one of the first groups, sorry, it was the second group. So the group that I started in 2012, and there was a group that I went into that was based in Wiltshire, and I joined them, and they were there using Dr. Greer's CD. And I still use Dr. Greer's stuff to this day. I think it's really cool, and I had plenty of experiences listening to some of his meditations. And what happened was that they'd had great success at the beginning using the app, and then but what I noticed in the group was they were just playing his CD over and over and over and over. And then when they played the CD, they sit there and look at the sky expecting something to happen, and then it didn't happen. And then they would feel, oh, they'd actually said, have we lost it? I sat in meditation with them, and I saw an image of us all holding hands, singing, and the sky lit up. And I explained that, well, it's a bit of beginner's luck, what happened at the beginning. And although it's great to have that kind of, what would you call it? Call it a training wheel, like listening to a recording, which like I say, I still do that now. I still listen to recordings. But you can use it kind of as a training wheel. But part of this process is to really just to get into your heart and do it in your own way as well. There's so many ways to do this. And honestly, some people it's a mixture of things, but really the number one thing is your intent. It's not the CTS, it's not the coherent thought sequence. It's a wonderful technique, and there is something about it that means it can really help and it really works. But there's I wouldn't say it's the most important thing, really. I know people that said that they've just literally sat there, had a conversation looking at the stars, and then it happens. Right. And that's mostly what I did when I was young. And some people just stick with that. They feel like that's it. That works for me, and I'll keep doing that. And I'll say, just do whatever works for you. So be willing to experiment, explore, and use your intuition. But just to give a few little pointers, intention is everything. Meditation is not what we do, it's who we are. So you find your own way to meditate. Meditation just means to be fully present right now. And talk, like I said, talk. Connect with yourself. Connect with yourself first and foremost. Connect with the earth, and then connect with space, the sky. Now, here's a way to think about this, and it may relate back to what may be happening in your consciousness, is when you look up at the stars at night, you're looking at yourself. one level you're looking at yourself. This is the exterior of ourselves. Think about it. When you close when you're in the womb, it's all dark. You don't even have eyes. There's no sense of separation. Eyes grow, these sockets grow and eyes appear, and this is the outside of the brain, so it can peer outside. When the eyes open, it's like, let there be light. Then you're born from this dark world, this abyss, and you're born into the light, and you see for the first time, not details, it's all kind of a blur, and it's all just a kind of like a big blob of something. And at 12 weeks, they call it the death of the infant. The infant starts to begin the first beginnings of separation, to realize that there's a mother, not just there being fed, but there is a mother, there's some kind of separation. And why I'm telling you this is because, you see, we are from the earth, our body came out of the earth, but a part of us also comes from above, from the stars. And we are what I call the in-between. Our feet touch the earth, we walk on the earth, and our crown chakra, our head, reaches up to space.
Do I need to learn about all that chakra thing? Should I learn about that?
No, you don't need to learn about all this. You just learn about connecting with basically what I'm saying is everything is you. So what this is really about is connect with the earth, connect above. When you connect with the earth, that's part of you. Like your body. I don't know if you've heard of saying, I have a body, but it's not my body. I have thoughts, but they're not my thoughts. Well, that's one level of understanding, but that's the first stage. The next stage, maybe I'm going too far here, I don't know, is that you realize that there is no separation between spirit and body. There's no separation between you and the earth and the sky. And that is how contact is possible. That is basically the basis of what this is. That's what people call oneness. So connect with the earth, look up at the stars, and realize you're looking at yourself. In a sense, you're looking at yourself, right? That light comes, we think it comes through space because we think about time. It comes through space, comes through our eyes into our brain. That light coming into your eyes traveled a long distance, right? From the past, right? Could be millions, billions of years. That is the same light was now inside you. And that's because, so that's kind of a more physical way of thinking of it in time terms, that there is no separation. Everything is interconnected and is flowing together. And that's all it is. So earth, sky, and then bring the energies down and focus in your heart. Maybe put your hand on your heart, focus in your heart. Think about what makes you feel love, gratitude, appreciation.
We've got a ton of questions here. I mean, this is an amazing session, Jamie, by the way. Thank you so much. I think just to sum up that point for Amanda, yeah, there's a ton of different ways you could connect, and you have to find the right way for you. This is what we've been trying with the lockdown project, is to encourage people to try different things. But some people don't need to actually go through an expanded consciousness technique to have an experience. Number of really good questions come up. Okay, so going to Sarah. Sarah's question to you, Jamie, is: I lucid dream every night. I have sleep paralysis a lot. I experience that buzzing sound you mentioned. So could that be the start of OBE?
Wow, cool. Yeah, the buzzing does occur in the sleep paralysis state. The sleep paralysis state is a doorway into astral travel. Well, I wouldn't say astral travel, a doorway into the out of body experience. Yeah. And it's definitely one of the signs of a buzzing and a vibration may appear to occur at the third eye or start at the third eye, but it actually will end up in the whole, feel it as though it's in the whole body. Yeah, so I would say yes. Simple answer to that one is yes.
And second question from Mark, linked to that really, is when you were young and you had your first experiences, did you ever suffer from paralysis when the beings presented themselves to you?
Now, I had a lot of sleep paralysis experiences, and I've known in later years that I'm a very sensitive person. So, for example, when it's hot in the summer, I will have loads of sleep paralysis. So it's not, oh, aliens. It's just hot. It's just the weather. Now, sleep paralysis there's something about it that leads to a sense of a presence. And I think there can be some truth if people have been watching too many Hollywood movies or whatever, that they then start to have certain hallucinatory experiences and think that that's some kind of contact event or something. And I used to get a lot of letters from people way back saying, "Oh, I think I've been taken because I couldn't, I had sleep paralysis or I couldn't move." And I think there's some truth in the sleep paralysis theory and how it applies to whether or not people are having some kind of experiences. But it is at the same time, however, it is a doorway to experiences. And so I've had sleep paralysis, but I became aware of differences between sleep paralysis and the contact experiences. So the skeptics are right. There are people having sleep paralysis that they then think are some kind of experience, i.e. contact experience, or this what some people call an abduction, which I think is a lot of it, that is a misinterpretation and it's not really the case. But I became aware that there was a phenomenological difference between those experiences and these other experiences. So I was able to distinguish that they were different. And in actual fact, in most of my experiences with the beings, no, there wasn't paralysis. There were a few instances of something that may be kind of like that, but not like sleep paralysis. And sleep paralysis, you're in bed and you're just laying there and you can't move your body. So I don't really want to go into details, but I would say that mostly no, and that for me, I was able to, with experience and research, be able to distinguish the difference between the two. And I think this is part of the value of this is just understanding the territory and the phenomenology of different states of consciousness. Because we talked earlier about dreams, astral travel, lucid dreaming, OBE, whatever. For most of us adults, we probably shouldn't get too confused between that and, say, a physical experience. But certainly if someone's young or they're not used to these experiences, I think it's possible some people would actually think that they were, quote, physical experiences, when in actual fact they were in these kind of other states of consciousness. I don't know if that answers it, but
Clive from Bristol is asking, when you say talk to them, does this have to be out loud, or can you say it to yourself to project your conversation? I mean, if they're telepathic, does it matter?
Yeah, just do whatever you feel, what feels right for you. It's about being genuine. Many times I've been sat there doing techniques, coherent thought sequence, meditating, whatever, and nothing has happened, for want of a better word. And then I've just got emotional or playful. And the number of times that they've responded to that, it's clear that just being honest, just coming from the heart. It doesn't mean you got to necessarily come from the heart and you're kind of like, love and light and I love everyone, and I'm this kind of multi-dimensional, high vibrational being that can only exist in love and light and everything's perfect. But if you just be honest and just kind of like really have a heart to heart with them, like a kind of, and you can get a bit frustrated too. You can just express that. I think maybe they got a bit of a sense of humor. We maybe underestimate them. And we also I think that maybe they don't have emotions or something, and they're kind of, I don't know, maybe not. But I think they respond to you being genuine. And again, like you said, James, all these different techniques you can do and these different ways of making contact. But really at the core of it is, number one, is consciousness. We are one, not two. That's how this is possible. And actually, what makes it much easier than you might ever think it would be. And secondly, intention. Those are the two biggest things I would say with this. We are one, our intention. And I guess from that, I would say being in the heart, being honest, genuine, being in gratitude, appreciation, and awe. And funny enough, when we look up at the stars, we get a sense of awe. And research is showing now that there's been all this talk about gratitude and how powerful gratitude is, but it turns out that awe appears to be more powerful, a lot of the similar effects in our consciousness on our health as gratitude, but it turns out that awe may be more powerful. It may be why people have created these giant buildings, you know, like religious towers going up and pyramids going up towards space, aiming towards the sky or whatever. That you know, and I think when we sit out underneath the stars, although we can even do CE5 indoors, in basically anywhere really, but when we do it outside under the stars, it's easier for us to get that sense of awe. And it also becomes easier to project ourselves or to remote view or to do the coherent thought sequence. And you'll find that as you sit under the stars, you meditate and then you open your eyes and look at the stars. And you can even meditate with your eyes open. So you just focus on your breath, just be aware of what you're hearing, just be conscious. Use your peripheral vision. I call this soft eye focus or peripheral vision, and just look at the stars. And if you've just done a meditation as well, where you're projecting yourself upwards for the coherent thought sequence or remote viewing or anything like that, and you're imagining that you're up in space connecting, what starts to happen is, even if you think it's your imagination, you start to move into a realization that as you look up at the stars, as I said to Amanda, that it doesn't feel like the stars are up there in space. It feels like you're looking at yourself. And this might sound a bit barmy, but in actual fact, I think if anyone that looks into their own consciousness, they'll start to realize that this is true. Because in our language, and in virtually all cultures throughout history as well, there's I and there's you. But I and you can be transposed. So I'm I and you are you, but then the other way round, I becomes you and you becomes I. And there's also we, the social dimension. There's also it, the physical dimension, like objects. And even when we close our eyes, we're aware of our thoughts and feelings and sensations on our skin or whatever. Anything that comes and goes, that moves, fluctuates, that's an object of consciousness. So our consciousness is, it's tetra arising, so to speak. It's all these different dimensions. It's I, you, the other, we, and it. And it's all arising at the same time. It's like these different perspectives, but it's all the same. I want to call it a thing. It's a thing and it's not a thing. It's everything is pure consciousness being experienced through these different lenses. And what's happening is, as you look up at the stars and you project yourself up, even if you just think it's your imagination, you start to come into the recognition. And funny enough, the word recognize, you recognize. It's like to remember that this, you're looking up at the stars, is you. Just as I look on everyone on the screen right now, these are all members of the human family. We're looking at reflections of consciousness.
Sorry, Jay. Is it easier for people to conceptualize this by this is all part of the one unified consciousness idea, isn't it? That we're all part of one single consciousness. And I think, did you see Una's talk the other day? I think she explained this really, really well by putting her fingers through a piece of tissue. This is all basically what you're talking about, basically the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that when she did that. That was great. Yeah, so she got anyone that wasn't there, she got a tissue and she put her fingers through, but said that, like, as it goes through the tissue, there's like all these fingers coming through, but then it's the same hand that has all these fingers on, right? Yeah, and that's a really cool way to think about so as we're looking on the screen and we saw all these different little cubes on the screen of all of our faces, what we're looking at, right? We've heard the phrase eyes are the windows of the soul. We're actually looking back at ourselves. where it's oneness in multiplicity. So when it comes to the ETs or any other beings elsewhere, the reason why we can make contact is because we can experience oneness in that the same consciousness looking through their eyes is what's looking through our eyes. And so, but if we take that, like I said, let's take that step further. When you're looking at the stars, you might think, oh, stars are just balls of gas. It's just energy. Well, yeah, but wait a minute. What are you made from? What are you? Energy. This is all vibrations, different fluctuating fields of energy. It's just different forms, different vibrations. And so when you look at the stars, you're just looking at another vibration. Now, that what you're looking at up there cannot be perceived without a perceiver. So this is like quantum mechanics, right? Quantum physics. You can't experience that. If you're not there to perceive it, there won't be anything perceived, right? So you are inseparable from that which you're observing. And one of the things I've had with the ETs over and over, and I was speaking to someone recently that told me the same thing. I won't say their name because you didn't say that. Well, I was going to share this on here, but I was speaking to someone recently, and they had some UFO experiences and contact experiences, and they shared with me that one of these beings said to her, "You're one of us." She said, "What do you think they mean by that?" And I said, "I don't know, but I've heard this same kind of thing over and over in slightly different ways." And if we go back to my experience I shared earlier, that feeling of family that I had with my first experience at age 7, I'm not the only one to report that. It's like on some level, they are us. Maybe on multiple levels. Maybe, for example, I don't know if anyone's heard of, what's his name? Greg Braden. He keeps talking about this research that is genetic research, but they're kind of not wanting to talk about it too much. But they discovered in our DNA 200,000 years ago that something happened in our DNA which kind of turns the evolutionary idea up on its head. They're not saying exactly what some of us might think, but basically something happened in our DNA which relates to the heart, something changed inside our heart, which led to the consciousness that we see in humans today. And another aspect of it was to do with language. But something happened quite profoundly. And of course, some people think, well, maybe who we are, like, are we somehow being tinkered with by ETs at some point? Now, that may be a possibility. Maybe that's one way that we're related. But but there's so many ways that we could be related, right? Like, and the main thing is that we're related through consciousness.
I've got a couple of good questions from John. John's first question is basically if along the lines of if you're having all these experiences, is this something that you can actually record data against? I mean, because obviously we've been talking about getting our form, publishing the form, and then collecting data from fieldwork trips over the summer. I think you've mentioned before that it at very least data will improve our ability to do CU5. But what's your position on that, Jamie?
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think it's going to, the more organized we are, the more that they'll take us seriously. And collecting the data is really cool too, because we can start to see more patterns, hopefully. And this could help us in a kind of, I suppose, part of this is you see the CE5 movement is very integrated, especially with the CSETI kind of movement. It's very integrated. What I mean by that is it's kind of holistic. So we're working on what seems like a subjective level, having interior experiences through consciousness that I may have on my own, but we could be in a group and someone else having a similar experience to mine. And we often get this situation where other people in the group are having a similar or even the same experience, kind of validating each other. And then we're also having experiences that are visible to the eye, could even be maybe photographed or filmed or whatever, and they're in the sky. So there's these different levels of experience. This experience this practice, it's almost like it's starting to show us that spirit, as I said earlier, spirit and matter are not separate. That it's not just we're having it, we're you know, we're having these experiences with our eyes closed, and then we go and tell someone, hey, I had this experience, and no one else can experience it. This is almost like it seems to be creating a bridge between what we think of as the separation between spirit and matter. And I think this is part of the big thing that is occurring in our consciousness and on our planet, that, you know, where science and spirituality are coming together, and a more integral understanding of the nature of reality. And really, that's what the contact experience, that's the kind of the weirdness of the contact experience. It's very much like quantum physics, you know, the crazy quantum physics experiments with the particle wave duality and the observer effect and all this kind of, you know, spooky action at a distance. And we see all of the same kind of things with the UFO phenomenon. You know, for example, a UFO being on radar, but not visible by eye, but then it's visible by eye, but they can't see it on radar. And any possibility you can think of, it seems to be that they can create any possibility and cross the threshold between what appears to be objective and subjective. And I think that's what the CE5 movement is. One of the wonderful things about it is that it is doing that. And I think that's where the recording comes in very handy, because I think we may start to see patterns, and that may improve our way of working in a more methodical sense. And maybe all these things then will come together. You know, you were using our intuition, but we're also like crunching data, and all of that working together. You know, I think that's the way forward. Yeah.
Got a question from Mark too, Jamie.
Cool.
During your first experiences, or maybe all experiences, when these beings present themselves to you, did you see any colors before their full manifestation?
Did you see any colors before their full manifestation? I get the sense that some questions that people they're looking for certain things. Maybe they've had experiences where they've had that kind of thing happen themselves. Or maybe I don't know what I would say to that question. Maybe I don't understand that, maybe the way it's worded. Did you see colors before their full manifestation? I'm not sure what it's meant. I've had some experiences where there's like a kind of a light, and then an appearance of being whatever, like there's some kind of light in the air or something. And I had one experience, which was a big experience in 1993, where this experience, I believe, was a it was a dreamlike experience, but it was so bizarre that there's no way I could have just dreamt that up off the top of my head. And then years later, there was another experience that was physical, that seemed to parallel the previous experience from when I was younger, which is really bizarre. Maybe I had a precog of a future experience, I don't know. But in that experience, there was, I had an interaction with a being where I was looking into his eyes, and I started to see all of these colors in front of me, but they were, and I actually not painted this, I used pastels, but I actually did do some artwork of this, and it was like interlocking shapes that were all multicolored, but each shape had its own specific color. It was like a kaleidoscope effect, and it was just like in front of my eyes, but it was like, it wasn't like it was in the air. It felt as though it was like it was in my mind, if that makes sense. Like it was looking into my mind, and I was seeing all of these colors spinning and dancing, and a sense that we were in some kind of communication. It was reading my mind, but also it was teaching me something. I call it knowledge bombs, where you just get kind of like a download of information, and you may or may not be able to remember what you've been downloaded with. A lot of it you don't remember straight away. And a lot of things they said to me repeatedly, in fact, was I asked them a lot, why can't I remember this, or when will I remember? And they would give me cryptic phrases like, you will remember when you need to remember. Things like that. But yeah, there was an experience. I don't know if that's what this Mark is thinking, but yeah.
Neil's asked
Color patterns or haze.
Yeah. Neil's asked about the third eye, and a question saying he read that there was some sort of manipulation in ancient times, potentially in Egyptian times, where that the third eye was removed from human beings or tampered with or affected in some way. And his question is, do you agree with that, or is that a possibility?
I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know. Maybe. I really don't know. You'd have to give me point me in the right direction with that, and it sounds interesting. Have a look into that. One of the things I did as a young boy, when I first started meditating, my meditation practice involved looking at an object at a distance, as I explained. But the other thing that I would do is I would roll my eyes up looking at this point, and I had a sense there was something there, and if you focus long enough, something happens. Well, I could probably talk for hours, share some crazy info on the third eye. That was probably most of my meditation practice, especially when very young, was primarily over many years would have been on the third eye. Wow, everyone's really going for it now. Now we've got people saying, what about the fourth eye? There's what about the fifth eye? And another the sixth eye. We're going to get into the 144th dimension in a minute, and how many chakras and how many DNA strands we can activate. But yeah, let's just stick with the third eye for now, because that's an interesting thing, the third eye, because one of the things that often gets reported by people having contact experiences, and people that have never had an experience before, they have an experience, and they start to report that there's a buzzing just there. And they start to report maybe the feeling of energy in the body, and then some kind of psychic perception or seeing lights in meditation, that kind of thing. And one of the experiences, the things I've become aware of over the years, I've experienced it and I've observed it in other people, but a lot of people I don't think are aware of it. Well, there will be some people that are aware of it, but for me, it's quite an interesting thing. So I suppose it's got, it's kind of like some things you're kind of more aware of, I suppose, or focus on more, or you find interesting. But there seems to be some kind of effect when interacting with star people that is what some people would refer to as Kundalini awakening. Now, there's full-blown Kundalini awakening, which can, without a teacher, actually be quite dangerous. But Kundalini really just means the life force. So it can be on a much more manageable level. So we've all got Kundalini, we've all got life force, what we call prana or chi. And I've had experiences where I've had activations from star people where clearly they activated more of that life force. In one experience when we were in Wiltshire, I was in deep meditation. I was literally kind of like so deep and immersed. I was in a white light and I just couldn't move. And I was told, do not open your eyes. And the group actually had some experiencing an object overhead that was rainbow colored. And I was in meditation. These beings appeared to me in the light, and they were dark blue. And one of them, he came up and he put his hands forward like this. And we put our hands together, and there was a feeling of electricity running through my body, and had like energy coming through the third eye area, came through into my third eye in a gold light. And it wasn't really so much like an informational thing. It was really just felt like a connection thing. And I've had various experiences like that. And I know other people report this, and contact workers, even people that are new to this. And so what happens is when you come into close proximity, so to speak, doesn't necessarily mean physical close proximity, but close proximity with interdimensional intelligence or extraterrestrial intelligence or star people, that we are raising our vibration so that we can open up and be able to realize that they exist, right? And as we do, it's like we come up to, quote, their level, but we also receive an influx of energy. And so this is what happens. People may have an experience, and suddenly it's like, you know, it kind of takes off, and they're reporting an activation of the third eye area, like a buzzing there. And they'll often report as well that this buzzing will reoccur just before they have another sighting, or when they're in C5 and something happens, the third eye area will start buzzing, or the energy will be felt in the body. And this is this is a part of you knows that they're in close proximity again. And so just as you could have like a tri-field meter or a radar detector to detect that there's something going on, we have that within ourselves to detect that these interactions are occurring. And that's part of what we do. We are developing our extra senses, so to speak, developing these senses, and that's part of what enables us to have contact or more contact, because what happens for a lot of people is you need a kind of like initial experience, or more of a physical experience, because you may or may not have opened these senses yet. But once you do, then you start to have more experiences, but they're not necessarily physical. It's like you're having experiences, being able to see things that may normally be invisible, if that makes sense. And but what's really cool about that, when that happens, is for me, it's not so much about seeing stuff in the sky. If I was to say the most incredible experience is when you have what I call telepathy, when you just have this connection with the star people, and that's the most wonderful experience. And like I said, you don't necessarily see anything in the sky. So when I was there, they saw something in the sky, but I was told to keep my eyes closed, and I was having this experience with my eyes closed. To be honest, if that didn't appear in the sky, on one level, I might have thought that I was dreaming it or imagining things, but I knew that on another level, I know that I'm not, because these things correlate with the external appearances, if that makes sense. So I just hear something about, do you have many or any deja vu experiences? Said Kevin. Definitely, I get it tons. There was one occasion when I had it for 2 weeks non-stop. I went to see a doctor because I was quite concerned. But it luckily, shortly after that visit, not that I don't know if he said some magic words or whatever, but it was sometime afterwards that it did slow back down. But yeah, it's very frequent. And if you meditate a lot and stuff like that, then that you know, probably experience, it's possible you might experience more of that.
Is that linked at all, Jamie, to so if you're linking it to, we're talking about linking it to physics, when you said if you go full out of body or astrally project, if your soul's coming out of your body, it's no longer trapped by time or by space, is it? So you technically could go anywhere in the timeline. And have you found that at all? Have you had any experiences when you've been out of body that have been, you know, you come back and think, and that, do you think that has contributed to the deja vu at all? Because maybe you have witnessed have witnessed something else.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, and I think that normally, yeah, we're kind of more, these things happen at a subconscious level. When they've done lots of experiments in parapsychology, apparently all of us are registering subconsciously. We're registering experiences, you know, being aware of things in the future or that kind of thing. But it all happens subconsciously. They're able to detect this through measuring EEG or measuring the heart, you know. becoming conscious of it is a different thing. I think when you start to expand consciousness, and like you say, you may be having more astral travel, out of body experience, or remote viewing, but a lot of that can still be, it may be happening, but it's still not all fully conscious. And I think when that happens, there will be a part of you that recognizes, a bit like when you have a dream. And your dream is maybe about something that actually happens in a day. It doesn't necessarily mean it's precognitive. It might just be that our brains are actually very good predictors of the future in a basic sense. And we might dream about something, or something reminds us of something in our dream, or something triggers a memory from a dream. And you know, like when you can remember a dream, some people can remember their dreams, but we all know we dream, but a lot of us just don't remember it, or it's vague, or we half remember it, or we can feel like it's there, like kind of a blurriness, and then it's kind of gone. And I think that's what happens, that we are all in a sense expanded. It's just our ability to be aware of that. We have a filter mechanism. Our brain is a filter. And when we start to meditate and explore expanded consciousness, that's literally what it means. Is the filter is we have less of a filter. And so, I think, James, I think that's basically, that's one possibility, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm very, very conscious. We've kept you for almost 2 hours, Jamie. So it's been an amazing, amazing session. We've got time for maybe one or two more questions. Neil Burns asks, why are all ETs appear dark or black? Are they really black in reality, and why?
I'm not sure what's meant by that. Why they appear dark or black? Are they? I'm not sure. Do they mean eyes, or I'm not sure.
Just a color. Okay. John's asked.
Right. Just yes, eyes.
Do you have any? Mark's asked, Jamie, do you have any pre-birth experience memories? By pre-birth, I mean not from within the womb, but more of a spiritual experience.
I've had many kind of flashes of what people would call a so-called past life. However, I kind of remain agnostic about it. And then when you hang out in these circles, and you get some people that they look at you and they go, like, I know you from past life. And it's almost like suddenly they want to draw you into that, like, and it almost feels like kind of like, I kind of agnostic about it. So it kind of seems to be the case, but I don't know. Yes, I've had the flashes, but you can get. I think you can get also too involved in that. You can start to think, is a bit like someone that starts to think that they're Tutankhamun, and they start to dress like Tutankhamun, and they start to live inside a pyramid. I think we can go a bit too far with it. And the point is this: is that who you are is not your so in other words, here's Jamie, right? But it's like, for me, this is like, it's spirit looking for these eyes, having this experience, whereas my ego will identify as, this is who I am, I'm Jamie. So I think it's the infinite spirit, the infinite consciousness, the oneness, that is having all of these kind of that may have all of these experiences or these memories. It's like an avatar with a big tree, and all of the memories are kind of go into the tree. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's like everything that you're experiencing is being fed back into the collective field of the entire universe. And then you might get a memory of what you think is a past life, but really what you're doing is you're tapping into the collective field. And then your ego appropriates it and says, that's my past life. This is where you get crazy situations, like someone claiming that they're Jesus in a past life. And then it gets even crazier, because you might have multiple people think that they're Tutankhamun. And say, well, you can't all be right, can you? So who's Tutankhamun? Can the real Tutankhamun or the real Jesus please stand up? So I like to be agnostic about it and say, well, maybe not, I don't know. But I certainly know that who I really am is infinite consciousness, which is tapped into all time and space and all experiences. But when that occurs within my being, I don't go, right, I'm an alien, or I'm in the wrong body. I did when I was young. When I was young, I actually went through that. I actually thought I was from another planet, and I got very confused. And I know there's a lot of people out there like that, and it gets very confusing, and it gets really silly. It will at one point I got a really bit crazy and thought, I'm going to tell my mum and dad, I'm not your. You're gonna have to accept me that I'm not who you think I am. You know, I could have changed my name to Zog, for example, but we would just say, well, Jamie, you're just turning crazy. Even today, when we're exploring these things, you know, you can see that I think it's going a bit too far. It's look, you just can get really almost like your consciousness and sense almost starts to split. It's a lot of confusion because you're then all over the place, and it's just like, look, what you are is infinite spirit. That's who you really are. You're not past life, future lives, parallel lives. You are the consciousness that is having any of these experiences, and that same oneness, that consciousness, is having the experience right now that has been given your name. There's this same consciousness is imagining itself as James Rose. This same consciousness is imagining itself as Jamie and Donna and Lee and Darren and Mark and Amanda and Neil and so on and so forth. It's the same consciousness. And so if we start to really identify with past lives and so on, then it becomes just as much of a hindrance as it is to be identified with the current lifetime. So that's how I perceive it. So yeah, I have those memories. But for me, are they any more true than a memory from when I was a young kid? Because when I was a young kid, 7 years old or whatever, he no longer exists. You know, it's a memory, it's electrical information. I can't say I have a memory, but I can't say to you, whether the younger me, no, he really existed. Well, he may have existed, but he doesn't exist now, except as a memory. But there's almost like, but the all of the cells have been replaced by new cells in a completely new body. But the younger me is really now, for me, it's like, it's just it's information. Whatever the younger me experienced and so on, that was feeding into the oneness field, and it's there to be tapped into as a memory or the experiences or the information of myself of that age is there. So in a sense, all of us could tap into that, and I think that's maybe what a lot of people are doing with like past lives or remote viewing or whatever. So if I may, I thought maybe I could just kind of end just with some pointers, some quick pointers, because I did write this down so I can be able to maybe keep it brief, of what I feel is the real preparation for us practically for contact. So the first thing is, like we talked about, is intention. So meditation, but meditation is not what you do, it's who you are. So just be yourself and find your own way, whether it's music, whether it's just getting out in nature, listening to the birds, or some meditation practice or whatever. Talk. That's part of setting your attention. Just talk and just let them know what you'd like to experience. Just be honest. Really mean it. Connect with yourself. And you can see that all these things seem to be kind of related, don't they? You know, really, it's in a way they're the same thing. So connect with yourself. It starts with yourself. Connect with nature, connect below, connect above, connect into your heart. And that's where everything in your heart is, where all of it kind of comes into unity, where everything is, that's like, for me, that's a unification point of all of it, above, below, within, without, and it all comes in through the heart. And in a sense, for me, that is my CE5 protocol. As above, so below, as within, so without, in the heart, where everything is one. Raise our vibration. So we can raise our vibration through putting our hand on our heart, thinking of someone that brings us to feel love, or whatever brings us to feel gratitude or peace. That sense of awe, looking up the stars, or some incredible experience. And what we're doing there is we are finding cohesion within ourselves and with the world, and it's all the same, because ourselves and the world, as I was saying earlier, when I look up the stars, that's really, in a sense, I'm looking back at myself. This is a part of me. It's all me. So, but it's coming to the awareness that this is all me, and that's what cohesion is. So we become aware ourselves, connecting with everything, connecting with the earth. Because when you're doing C5, you're not just going, right, I'm going to connect, get the app out and connect with them up there. You can still do it that way, but you're going to find it a lot easier, and you can have a much more wonderful integral experience if you just connect with everything. And what you do is you allow it to expand, and it's easier to expand to these higher levels and up into space when you start at the level of the earth. So you start with the earth. That actually helps you to go up. So you start low and then you go up and up and up, and it starts to go inward, outwards, and it expands out. And so if you're in a group, you can hold hands, you can connect in that sense. Imagine connecting with the group, having some kind of shared focus, maybe singing together, whatever it is, meditating together, however it is you can connect in the group, feeling the group connection. Even if it's online, we can imagine connecting with everyone else. You'd be surprised. You can connect with everyone else. And that's bringing us this in the heart, bringing us to love. Now, love isn't just a feeling, it's a force. It's the glue that holds everything together. And it's again, it's coming its heart, feeling that connection, or that gratitude, that awe, and that brings us into the heart, and that raises the vibration. And when we raise our vibration, we don't need to worry about any things about this or that. We know that when we're on that higher vibration, we experience what we are. So if we're in this higher vibration, we will only experience higher vibration. In other words, I'm saying what you embody within yourself in that moment, you will then have an corresponding experience. So in other words, if you make contact, you'll make contact with beings that are on that level. And so that's why it's important to raise the vibration. Yeah, contact can come in many forms, as I said before. And the other thing is we've got this global event coming up, and we've got this really kind of focused intention, apart from our general intention to make contact and to develop spiritually and to work towards world and universal peace. There's also this specific intention we got for this upcoming meditation. So it's 9th of March, 9 p.m, formation of 9 over a densely populated area. But you've all seen the image of it like a diamond, right? So Ricky Butterfast from CSET, he said, I heard him say in, I think it was on one of the Facebook groups many years back, I wrote to him, and he wrote back and he said, yeah. He said that big responses come when you give at least 2 weeks of preparation. So we are in the countdown phase now. Okay. Okay, 18, we're in the countdown phase. This 2 weeks leading up to that date, we crank up the pressure, build up the pressure, do your meditations, do whatever raises your vibration, and keep putting the call out, keep putting the signal out, keep imagining that this happens, and especially how it will feel when they respond to us, whether it's personally or collectively. Just the emotion of how that'll feel, like, that might bring you to a sense of gratitude or awe. And that is what, it's not so much about the visualization, it's about the feeling that you get. So imagine it happens, imagine it's like it's already happened, and the feeling that you get. And that's what kind of that's the key to this, in terms of what some people call manifestation, I guess. That's the key, is the emotion. Repetition is also important. When you do this, mean it. It doesn't have to be long. There's something I call mini C5s. You can just spend a couple of minutes just quickly going out and down and imagining putting the call out, you know, letting them know that you want contact and that we'd like this formation of lights in a diamond on that date. And just the more we put that out with repetition, even if it's very quick, very short, it creates what I call a groove. It's like we start to leave that in the higher astral realm. And it's even when we stop doing the meditations, we go off and we do our other stuff, like just ordinary stuff, go to work or whatever, or switch on the TV. We've left that groove. It's like a mantra. If you have a mantra and you keep repeating it, you'll find even if you stop it kind of, or a particular tune, it wants to keep repeating in your mind. We've all had that experience, right? Just keeps on going, whether it's a positive, something good, and sometimes you get an annoying tune. Oh God, why do I don't like that tune? It's kind of like a kind of jingle or whatever. It starts to repeat in your mind. That means it starts to run automatically. It's almost like you've set up a signal generator, which is running now, even when you're not focused on the task at hand. Then it runs in the background. That said, you put it out there, but it is also important to let it go. So I'm not thinking you keep your mind focused on it all day long. I'm saying put it out there, raise your vibration, put out the signal, let it go, and then just kind of leave it alone. But in terms of how our minds, our conscious and our brain works, it will still be there in subconscious, like a ongoing signal generator. So repetition is important, and we can get that repetition through, i.e. just doing more of these meditations, but also doing quick mini CE5s. So we're constantly dropping the seed of intention into the consciousness field. Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that was just what I'd like to share about kind of how to prepare ourselves for this possibility. And that's it, really. I hope that was enjoyable.
Jamie, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so very much. And I'll put up a recording of this the next day or two. Thanks, guys. I think we've got so many questions and so much amazing feedback on the chat that I think we probably have to do a fortnightly or monthly Ask Jamie session. So
I don't know. Well, if there's any questions, people can by all means I don't know, maybe put them into the Facebook group. I don't know if we have a little thread on there, or people are free to email me questions if they want. I mean, happy to respond to people if they want to. Actually, I put my email up on there if
oh yeah, well, I mean, just absolutely, whatever you feel comfortable with, Jamie.
No, that's fine. Dealy. Just right, okay, let me just type it a moment. Where's the screen gone? There it is. Okay, well, I'll put it on the screen, and then if there's any more questions, I'd be happy to respond to people. I hope I didn't miss too much.
That's brilliant. That's great. Jamie, thank you so very much. Really absolutely amazing session. And thank you guys for attending. Good night, all.
Keep up the good work, everyone. Bye for now.
Brilliant. Bye, guys.